My name is Kathryn Orford and I am coming to you all the way from Australia, and I am so pleased that Christy has invited me to share my story in the hope that it inspires you on Fearless Friday. I have so many fearless stories, but the one that I'd really love to share with you is probably the one that had the most defining moment in my life so far. And what I learned was just incredibly valuable. Was it easy? No. Was it painful? Absolutely. In my early 30s, I thought I'd met the man of my dreams. He turned out to be my biggest nightmare, which in hindsight, looking back, was my biggest gift. But at the time, I've got to tell you, it didn't feel like a gift at all. He overlapped his women, he lied to me, he dumped me, he went on to marry the other woman within about 3 months of dumping me. And unfortunately, we were in the same social circles. So we went off to a course in Hawaii together, and there they were in front of me. We came back to Australia and was doing a 6-month training course to be a trainer. And guess who was there? And guess whose study group I was in? So if you can imagine, it felt like my heart had been pulled out of my chest, thrown on the ground, and pretty much stamped all over. I didn't know at the time that I was adopted, so I had no idea why this one man dumping me had really catapulted me into anxiety attacks and feeling horrible. The anxiety attacks and the depression didn't come at first because I put on my coat of armor and I got out there in the world and I pretended that I was okay, but inside I was literally falling apart. Obviously, I couldn't sustain that, so after about 9 months, I did fall into a deep, dark depression. I was, as I said, mentioned before, I was having anxiety attacks and I really didn't want to get out of bed. I decided that the pain was enough, and in actual fact, it went beyond pain. I became numb, and I decided I was actually going to take my life. Thankfully, I didn't, because I'm here today sharing this story with you. And what I learned was two of my clients actually were there for me in my darkest hour, and I don't know about you, but I had a really, really vocal inner critic. Can you relate? So I'm sitting, picture this, I'm sitting down on the cold tiles in my bathroom floor, and I am chastising myself. I'm in a fetal position, I'm rolled up in a ball, and I'm rocking myself. And my inner critic, or my internal dialogue, was saying to me, you are so hopeless, you are so pathetic that you can't even organize your own suicide properly. Long story short, 2 of my clients were there for me. The phone rang, I let it ring out. The phone rang again, I let it ring out. The 3rd time it rang, just some sort of a gentle voice in my head piped in and said, get up and answer the phone. I think I was probably concerned that something may have happened to my mum and dad, so I actually got up off the floor, answered the phone, and it was one of my beautiful dance students' mothers, and she said, Brooke told us that you were really upset at class today. We know you're going through a lot. Are you okay? And I just said, no, but I will be. And in that moment, she read between the lines and she said, Kathryn, I'm in the middle of cooking dinner. My husband's not home yet. I want you to promise that you will not do anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I said yes, but I had no intention of keeping my promise. I put the phone down. I went, oh my God, I'm going to have to come up with plan B before she gets here. So I remember calmly collecting all of my things and going, oh my goodness, I've got to have my wallet so that my body can be identified. I'm going to have to drive my car off a cliff, and I hope I can get that right and not become a paraplegic. So I'm finally making my way up the corridor about 10 minutes later with my handbag. And just before I got to the front doorbell rang, and I went, oh great, how could she get here this quickly? I opened the door, and there's another beautiful student's mother. And she said, we know you're going through a lot at the moment, and we just want you to know how much we love you. And she had this huge, beautiful bouquet of flowers. In that moment, I really started to wonder whether I was meant to go. I'd actually done some work with Robert Kiyosaki in the past, and Kiyosaki says that when we're off track in life, sometimes we get a tap on the shoulder. And if we don't listen to that tap, it gets bigger the next time. And if we don't listen to number 1 and number 2, by the time it gets to the 3rd one, we're flat, face down, on the ground with the skid marks on our back of the Mack truck that's just bowled us over, and all we can smell is the diesel fume and go, what the happened just then? It could be a health scare, it could be a financial scare, it could be a relationship scare, which it certainly was for me. So all these things are going through my mind. It's like time stood still. Have you ever been in one of those situations where everything just goes in slow motion? So I was in that altered state, and I was going, maybe I'm not meant to go after all. All these people out here love me. So maybe it's time that I learn to love myself from the inside out, instead of looking for validation from other people that I was okay. So I made a pledge to myself in that moment, and I pledged that I would never allow anybody to rob me of my self-esteem ever again. And that's when the real work began. Was it easy? No. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Day by day, brick by brick, I built myself up to be the confident, self-assured woman that I am today. And so my message to you is we all have an inner critic. And I would so love if you go to my website and actually download the video on there and watch it, because that would teach you how to turn that inner critic into your own personal cheer squad. How cool would that be? That you actually have a cheer squad cheering you on instead of that inner critic that chastises us and tells us we're not good enough in some way. So what I learned is I'm in control of my mind and my thoughts, so I better be really, really discerning about the thoughts that I give myself. Well, looking back, the moment that I took control of my life and I took responsibility for my self-worth and my thoughts and beliefs and behaviors, everything shifted on the outside. You know, the beautiful Dyer recently passed away last week, and I had the pleasure of actually sitting on a plane next to him for 5.5 hours from Maui to San Jose when I was on my way to do my very first book signing at the I Can Do It conference that Wayne was actually speaking at. And we had fabulous conversations, really, really deep, meaningful ones. And one of the absolute nuggets that I took away from that amazingly special time with him was, we have a choice of choosing whether or not we're going to come from a space of love or a space of fear. And ultimately, every other emotion that we're experiencing is a subset of one of those two. So whenever I start to feel a little bit anxious or stressed, I go, okay, am I coming from a space of love and faith in the universe and trust, or am I allowing fear to get behind the wheel? And so what keeps me motivated is knowing that every time I take charge of my thoughts and my beliefs and my behaviors, fabulous things start to show up in my life. So if that's not enough to keep me motivated, I don't know what else is. I have so many favorite quotes and mantras. It's really, really challenging to actually just share one, so I'm going to do a few. One of them is, if it's to be, it's up to me. Which is, reiterating what I was saying, taking personal responsibility for my thoughts, my actions, my behaviors, who I hang out with, because who I hang out with is who I become. So if it's to be is up to me is one of them. If I think I can, or I think I can't, I'm right. And, that's our brain believes what we tell it. So ultimately, I'm going to tell it that I think I can. Another one that, again, was a gem that Wayne shared on his movie The Shift recently is, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. So when it comes to the law of attraction, if we're constantly wanting something beyond who we are at this very moment, it's highly likely we're not going to create it in our lives. But if we actually come from a space of faith and gratitude and generosity of spirit, then it can't help but draw all of those amazingly great things to us in our life. So they're just 3 of my favorite mantras. There are so many others, and I would love to share them with you. I actually send out quite often, about once a month, I send out newsletters with lots of fantastic tips on how you can become your number one fan. My book is called Become Your Number One Fan, How to Silence Your Inner Critic and Live the Life of Your Dreams. It's an Amazon bestseller in about 5 different categories at the moment, so you can actually download that And my website at the moment, the new one's being built, but the old one has lots of free resources. You don't even have to sign up for a newsletter. If you go to www.theconfidencecoach.net, you'll see a set of balloons on the side. And if you click on the balloon that says resources, that will take you straight to the video of me teaching you how to reprogram.